going to begin the recording, and I'm going to share my screen. I want to welcome all of you to today's webinar. My name is Mary Ann Remolador. I'm the Assistant Director of the Northeast Recycling Council. Today's webinar is being funded by USDA, and it is part of a program, part of a project to help support and promote glass recycling in rural communities. Today we have presenters from 3 rural recycling centers and the nonprofit organization they are all working with to consolidate and ship the glass to its next destination. Our presenters are Suzanne Simon, coordinator of the Thetford Recycling Center in Vermont. Then we have Paul Albee, who is the manager of the Norwich Transfer Station in Vermont. Ben Hoy, the director of the Walpole Recycling Center in New Hampshire, and Bonnie Bethune, senior member services representative of the Northeast Resource Recovery Association. So I'd like to invite Suzanne to present.
Thank you, Mary Ann, and good morning, everyone from across the United States. This is a pleasure to have been invited. As I developed this presentation, I learned from a very old notebook the history of our recycling. It really started back in 1988-89 with the formation of a town committee. This town committee was boosted by the group of volunteers, what I consider super volunteers, because they did a tremendous job of pushing the whole concept new to the residents, the 2,400 residents of Thetford, into trying out doing recycling. One of the key things that really helped jumpstart was the pilot recycling grants that were given out by the state of Vermont. The town of Thetford received $3,600, and the town matched with $5,000. And with that money, they were able to plan and implement a program. And it started at the local elementary school with a portable recycling center. If I could have the next slide, please.
Just give me a minute. There you go.
This is a photograph from a copy, but it's clear enough to see that this is a rectangular metal structure with side doors, and you can see the side doors that have been labeled for collection of glass. And back then we were doing clear, green, and brown glass, as well as aluminum cans. So that was the initial program. It added also later on newspapers and cardboard, and one little letter indicated that they got a volunteer who provided a bus, and they collected all that paper and cardboard in the bus, and they would take that monthly or so to another vendor who would actually recycle that. It was really important starting at the elementary school from what I read. They had subcommittees that did outreach to the schools and to the families. They had a newsletter, and they really tried to increase the amount of recycling that occurred, and actually did in the first 5 years. And in fact, in 1993, they had to consider building a significant recycling center, which is now at the location where I work on Route 113, about a quarter of a mile from the town hall and a mile from the elementary school. Today, the census is around 2,700 people. So it's about an increase of only about 300 people. Despite that, we have 500 households that buy permits on a annual basis. And I think we are hoping to continue to increase that. I think a lot of people are using the Hartford transfer station and the Lebanon landfill in New Hampshire because they have more frequent hours than we do. Also, Casella is a prominent fixture here in our communities, and they provide trash as well as recycling. And there is also some small private vendors that do trash and metals. Next slide, please. This is a collage that Marianne put together from her visit from our transfer station. You can see my puppy dog in the middle photograph. This consists of 2 gates, a entrance and an exit. It's a one-way oval-shaped gravel driveway with parking around the inner oval like spokes on a wheel. The vehicles where they're parked are up against the roll-offs that are then in line with this asphalt walkway, which my dog is sitting on. And you can also see that the walkway rises up from the right and to the left to the bins. And that allows people to walk up right to the bins and drop their recyclables. And currently we do mixed paper, corrugated cardboard, mixed plastics 1, 2, and 5, and no black. And that's because of our vendor, Casella. Scrap metal, non-redeemable aluminum cans, as well as our mixed glass. Our glass bin is covered and has plastic doors. And the reason I think previously, I've only been here 18 months, I think they felt it was safer. Some of these people who drop their glass in do it quite forcefully, and we have found that this is a safer method. These photos were taken when we were participating in NRRA's program of clean glass, which consisted of jars and bottles only. Our clean glass was going to the Lebanon landfill and then on to Canada. And my understanding is it was used to make fiberglass as well as new bottles and jars. Currently, we have 3 paid staff that work from 8 to 12:30 each Saturday. We use rakes and hand pickers to remove contamination from the bins. And we do fairly well in getting most contaminants out. Next slide, please. In mid-May of this past month, Lebanon landfill informed us that they were no longer collecting clean glass. They have temporarily stopped for a variety of reasons. And so we had to decide what to do next. And we consulted with Bonnie, who's going to be speaking shortly. And we changed to collecting of glass for processed glass aggregate. And this is what they use for road construction as well as constructing of surfaces of all shapes and sizes. It's worked out really well for us. Casella, who is our transporter of our recycled glass, has agreed to do that. And the costs, Bonnie was able to keep them at the same level approximately that we have now. The reaction to changing has been tremendous. The community did not like the previous clean glass program. And the reason is they could not recycle window glass, porcelain, ceramics, mirrors, drinking glasses, and cooking containers. And they really like that opportunity now, instead of it ending up in a landfill. The glass volume averages about 4.7 every time the bin is pulled. And you saw the bin, it's pulled with the top, and it has a side door, and that's how they empty it. Last year, the total was 43 tons. This does not include our redeemables. We've been doing redeemables since we opened in 1989, and that brings in significant monies for us. We think we're going to be increasing volume this year. I might be wrong, but with the addition of mirrors and glass panes, we're wondering if we're going to be pulling our glass bin more often. The other area that Marianne wanted me to speak on, which I have only a little bit to touch on, and that is outreach. The outreach, again, was done by this super volunteers in 1989 in the first 5 years. Currently, we use technology. We have a Thetford listserv, and I several times a month put announcements out. We also have a website, and we also do posters. Some of them are laminated, and others we place on what we call sandwich boards. And these are boards that we've gotten from old indoor doors that we've cut and painted and used to announce things as people drive in. And the other key is our outreach is on Saturday mornings and also by email. I have an email address, and we get dozens of questions. And we always are thanking everyone for the questions because we really want to encourage recycling. Thank you very much. And I hope I didn't go over too far, Marianne.
Thank you, Suzanne. You did fine. And Paul, I'd like to invite you to present.
Okay.
Oh, hold on one second. There we go.
Okay. I am actually not the manager at the transfer station. I am what they call the lead attendant, and so I'm responsible for what happens up there on the 2 days a week we're open. We're open Wednesdays and Saturdays, and I do not get involved in any of the finances other than collecting money. The town prefers to keep me in the dark as to expenses and revenue, so I can't share any of that stuff with you. Just a little background, it's kind of ironic. I'm involved in this glass recycling now because I spent 42 years working for Corning Glass and actually spent 10 years at Corning in Corning, New York, operating glass melting furnaces. So glass contamination was drilled into my head early on when I worked there. And so I try to educate our customers about what does not go in and why we can't have it. It's as you can see in the one slide there, we have our sandwich boards that explain glass only. This was under the previous program when all the glass was going to Lebanon. And I understand now we can accept more material. And I guess one question for the NRRA is, are we going to go back to the program through Lebanon in the fall if Lebanon starts taking glass again? Because I hate to keep changing what we accept and don't, because the folks who come in seem to get very upset as we change what we take and what we don't take. As Casella tells us that they no longer want such things as black plastic and so on. And we have people who get very upset every time something changes. So that's just the way that goes. But we do collect deposit cans and plastic bottles, as well as Vermont deposit glass. You can see we have Gaylords that we collect the glass that has deposits, and we work with Vermont Redemption on that. All the money goes to the town, and it is, I feel it can be a good cost savings for the town, because with the deposit glass, the town's getting money for it instead of paying to get rid of it. The bottom couple pictures, you can see the kind of get an idea of the quantity we have. I think it's a 30-yard covered container with doors in the side that people put the glass in. They have to walk up those steps and deposit the glass. We've only been separating the glass since I think it was about 2019. Before that, it went in the zero sort with all the other recyclables. And one good benefit for us was when we put glass in with zero sort, our zero sorts collected weekly. And with glass in there, we were finding we were getting the zero sort filled before the second day. And so we'd have to open other containers and pay Casella for additional pickups because the volume of glass in with the other recyclables just was filling the big hopper too fast. Then we do have now, it's a new thing they formed this winter, a solid waste committee with people on the from the community, and they're working on trying to get better signs, and they feel our sandwich boards are too negative because we have all those items with red X's too. But the solid waste committee is also trying to come up with a brochure. So when we start selling, we have a annual window sticker people have to buy to use our facility. We're hoping to have a brochure to hand out with the window stickers that explain the glass recycling program as well as the other services we offer. And we do take, of course, we separate cardboard. We have our food bin containers. We have our regular garbage, if you will, where we take anything with refrigerant in, refrigerators, air conditioners, dehumidifiers. We also are paint care pickup place. We take tires and we take construction material. So we're kind of, we take basically almost anything but hazardous waste. We collect tires, and we used to collect oil, but that's been on hold. We're having trouble getting people to pick it up, and we have a contamination issue, including picking dead mice out of the waste oil, which isn't fun. But that's basically what we do there. And I guess that's it. If anybody has a question, you can fire away, or if you want to stop up and see what our facility looks like. We are open Wednesday and Saturday from 8 to 4:45 p.m.
Thank you, Paul. And we're going to hold questions until the end. And right now we're going to move into Ben's presentation.
Well, thank you very much. My name is Ben Hoy. I'm the director of Walpole Recycling in Walpole, New Hampshire, tiny town, about 3,600 people, just north of Keene. We are a pay-by-bag system, meaning anyone can attend our facility. So we do get a lot of out-of-towners that come in. We really, with the pay-by-bag system, we really advocate for recycling, trying to keep our waste down. Of course, I can always tell who's recycling and who's not, as anybody that runs a facility knows. When you hear glass hit the compactor, you can tell right away. So there's those indicators, but you are paying for it, you know, when you're not recycling. So the pay-by-bag system really helps to advocate for recycling, you know, and it does help us, I think, a lot. We have probably roughly, just looking at the public, I think about 90% of the public is doing some sort of recycling. on site. As was said earlier, our changes that are made are constant at the recycling center. We're trying to always do what's best behind the scenes, and some of the changes we try to make changes without notifying the public if possible, because I know that people are resistant to change, but it is for the best. I mean, a lot of times we're trying to make changes to align ourselves with who's recycling products and how they want them recycled. So those are the reasons for the changes for us. And one of the biggest things that we look for and try to advocate for is pulling recyclables from the waste stream, which costs the taxpayer less money in the long run. Last year, or on a typical load at Walpole Recycling, we're shipping about 14.5 tons. The reason for that, as you can see, our container is crushed glass. It's pure glass. It's pure bottled glass, I should say. We have a really strong volunteer presence that helps sort those bottles. We keep that going, like changes come about, but we still kind of keep the same basic formula. We have on the left, on the bottom left of your screen, you'll see it almost looks like stairs, but it's a conveyor belt that goes into it's called a bottle crusher, which the green picked the little machine to the right of the conveyor belt is our bottle crusher. Yeah, I think Marianne's signaling it there. Yep.
Yeah.
It's a fantastic machine. It's fun, I think, for the volunteers, or if anybody's never done it before. Pressing the buttons, watching the glass disappear and become like a smaller, more manageable product is a great thing. It's fun to break bottles. Once the bottles are broken, where that green machine is, there's a room in the back of the building the bottles go into the green machine. They're broken up by little hammers, and the glass falls to the ground underneath that machine. I open the garage door when we think it's full. You can often, it's like a different sound when the glass conveyor belt is breaking glass with a full amount of glass underneath it. It's not falling quite as far, so it kind of indicates to me it's time to clean it up. So I'll drive the Bobcat into that room. I'll pick up the glass and I'll dump it into this container. I have a yellow mark that I drew along the container where anything over that mark is too heavy for the hauler. Naughton & Son does our hauling. They've been great for us, but if you go over that line, it is hazardous to drive because of the weight, so that's an indicator for me to keep the weight down. So yeah, we ship about 14.5 tons every time we do it. We only do it like 3 times a year, so that keeps the trucking costs low for us. We ship to Keene, and from Keene, that glass, and I'm sure Bonnie will elaborate on it, goes to Montreal, and they've asked us to keep porcelain and other like window panes out of our glass. I was informed by someone at 3M, the company, I believe that pulverizes our glass, that porcelain and contaminants clog their machinery and cause, they have to shut down while they fix or clean out the porcelain and contaminants. So it's important to keep the glass clean, from what I know. From there, it goes, I believe it goes to Owens Corning in Albany, New York, where it is turned into fiberglass insulation, from what I was told. So yeah, we separate. We're a pre-sort operation, so everything that comes in is pre-sort. We bale specific, number 1 peat, number 2 HDPE colored, number 2 natural. We've just started exclusively baling number 5 plastics. So
And something just happened to your sound where it sounds like you're talking through, I don't know, like a megaphone or something. Can you just check that?
Sorry about that. Okay, any better?
Yeah, sitting closer definitely helps.
Very good. Okay. So yeah, everything comes in pre-sort. We're a pay bag operation. It's great to have volunteers. They've helped us tremendously. In the course of a year, we typically break up and ship about 42 tons of glass, which is 42 tons that's being recycled and not being put into the waste stream and being paid for it that way. So there are some small costs, but those costs are well worth it when we know that the product's being recycled and reused. Our costs, we're at about $45 a ton through NRRA. And the trucking to Keene is $185 per trip. So, those costs are reasonable, and we're happy with our glass program. It works for us. We're a small town, and we try to do the best we can to recycle all products that we can. So, and we're always looking for new avenues to do those things. But glass is an important thing to recycle. It weighs a lot. There's a lot of poundage in there, and if you're pulling it from the waste stream, you're doing a good thing for your small community.
And now, Bonnie, I'm going to stop sharing my screen so that you can share your screen. We have a lot of questions coming in too, which is wonderful.
Good.
And we will get to them right after Bonnie.
Okay, so you can see my screen fine?
I cannot see it yet.
Share. How's that?
Yes, perfect.
Okay, all right. Well, hello, everybody. It's great to see all these programs. Some I've been to. I haven't been up to Norwich, so awesome to see all of you. My name is Bonnie Bethune. I'm Senior Member Services Representative for NRRA. I actually was an operator back in New Boston, New Hampshire for 15 years prior to coming to NRRA almost 20 years ago. So I've had my fingers in recycling ever since I went to UNH and just got bit by the bug. A little bit about NRRA. We've been a recycling nonprofit for almost 41 years. And we do cooperative marketing and cooperative purchasing for our members, and which is about 400 members at this point in time. Part of what we're going to talk about is, where does the glass go? What are the options for members? How do they collect it? How do they store it, transport it? How do we weigh glass? How do we charge for that? And what are contaminants? And a couple of case studies very briefly. Already talked about NRRA. Cooperative marketing and purchasing is basically what my role is in working with the best vendors for the commodity that our transfer stations produce. I call it New England hand sorted. As Ben said, pre-sorted material. I can sell this material anywhere because it's sorted to spec. We returned 1.8 million back to our members in 2020, and that's net revenue. We also do education and technical assistance. This is part of what we do here, and we just finished our annual conference for the first time in 3 years. We all got together and talk about recycling in Manchester, New Hampshire in May, and it was very successful. We had 270 people and 30 vendors all talking about recycling. It seemed all at once. It was quite a buzz. So there's two programs that go through NRRA, and one of them is clean glass recycling. This is the one that Ben referred to, where his clean glass, just glass jars and bottles, his goes to Keene Recycling, and then it is shipped up in 30+ ton loads up to our Canadian vendor, 2M Resources in Canada, and they actually do the crushing of the glass, getting it down to a very fine crush, and then it is sent back into the United States to be made into fiberglass insulation, most likely Corning, or new glass jars and bottles. It's a very specific mix. Clean glass jars and bottles sounds really easy, but it can be complicated, and it requires operators to really stay on top of that. We have 20 communities in New Hampshire, Vermont, and Massachusetts that do the clean glass recycling program. Our host sites, what we call host sites, we work with the city of Keene. The city of Lebanon is on pause for the summer. They are low staffed. It got overwhelming. We wanted them to take a break. In the fall, we hope that they will come back for a program, but it probably will be a PGA processed glass aggregate program. It will most likely not be a clean glass program. So we're going to have a shift there. We also take clean glass up at All Metals in Hardwick, Vermont. And then we have 2 communities that actually have enough glass that they keep separate, and we pick it up, our vendor picks it up in Wellesley, Mass, and Rye, New Hampshire. The other program is the Processed Glass Aggregate Program, or affectionately known PGA. This is glass jars and bottles, but also includes porcelain sinks and toilets with the plastic and the metal removed, Pyrex, ceramics, you know, that cup, drinking glasses, window glasses without the frames. It's a much broader capturing of glass material. It's crushed at our various sites into an aggregate and is used for road base or drainage around piping. And we have 60 communities in New Hampshire and Vermont and Massachusetts that do the PGA program. We have 4 sites at this point in time: Littleton, New Hampshire, New London, New Hampshire. Waste Management Rochester is a great partnership with Waste Management, where the material is brought there. We send the crusher in, and Waste Management uses that crushed material right at the landfill for mostly for gas pipe drainage for the methane or for road work. We actually have a site down at the Cape. There was a lot of trucking of material out, bringing it over the bridge and into Massachusetts. So we're working with the town of Dennis, and we have 6 towns coming into that one site in Dennis, Mass. It's a PGA program with a twist. They actually, it's clean glass jars and bottles, but it's we crush it. So it's a little bit a morph of a program. Again, total of 60 communities that use that processed glass aggregate program. This is our glass crusher. It's a pretty basic piece of equipment that takes the glass in, crushes it, and kind of pops out. The corks go in the base of this, and the metal rings and the plastic. So what you see coming out there as glass is literally, you can run your hands right through it, and that becomes our aggregate. So each of the sites that collect the glass for processed glass aggregate, they have to have about 1,000 tons on before we send our mobile crusher in. And he also brings along a loader to load that material. So it's all done in one spot. They just got done up in New London, where we crushed 1,200 tons. And right now our crusher is over in Waste Management in Rochester, where they're crushing almost 1,800 tons. The end product is a 1-inch minus or a 3/8 minus, depending on which state you're in. The Massachusetts DEP requires a 3/8 minus. It's a smaller crush, and we have to actually have a screener come in to get it down to that size. So it's a little bit more expensive process, but we get the job done at the end. There's other ways that glass is captured. Paul alluded to it a little bit. We capture our glass in the dual stream programs, where containers set aside that also include glass, or in the single stream programs. And some communities actually collect at their own facility and have enough material to actually bring our vendor in and crush on site, or they mechanically crush and can get it down to a very small commodity. Collection, 2-stage separation is something you hear with glass a lot, because we want to keep that material clean, especially in the clean glass program. So having residents put their glass jars and bottles on a tray or in a separate small bin before it goes into the act, absolutely the best way to do it. This is actually in Sunapee, New Hampshire. Some communities collect in these dumping hoppers. And so if residents put it into the dumping hopper, and then staff can go along and pick out anything that doesn't belong. And this is prior to it going into that roll-off container going to market. So again, 2-stage separation. First stage, collect from the residents, inspect. Second stage, put it into the ultimate container going to market. Some people store in open top containers. Some people store in bunkers. And this is one that you can actually see the PGA program here at work, where there's crushed glass. They actually have a crusher up in Tuftonboro, New Hampshire, and they include some crushed porcelain. There's some tiles in there. All of this is to spec under the processed glass aggregate program. This is the pile down in Dennis. You can stockpile the glass. Just a reminder that if you want a nice surface, you don't want to pull up rocks and so on when you are actually picking it up to put it into a container. Here's Keene, New Hampshire. You can see where a truck has come in to drop the material to be inspected, and glass is delivered in 6 or 10 wheelers, 30 yarders, 40 yarders, 50 yarders, 70 cubic yarders, whatever works the best for the community to bring their material to our host sites. And most towns deliver their own or hire a local hauler. How do we do weights? Some of our host sites, our glass host sites, have scales, some do not. If they have a scale, the cost per ton is based on those scale weights. If the host site, like New London, New Hampshire, does not have a scale, we have 3 weights that we get from the 3 loads, and we take the average weight that the operator and NRRA agree on, and that is the weight that we use going forward. If your program changed and you change from a 30-yarder to, say, a 50-yard container, we would establish 3 new weights. So this way we can bring material to any of these sites. Glass contamination. This is an extreme picture of glass contamination. Glass recycling is not an easy program. To some people, glass fluorescent bulbs is glass. We know better. We were able to pull that material out of the pile and recycle the glass that was there. But it does give us the point to actually monitor when contamination happens. So if on the first contaminated load, you get a warning, the second load, there could be a fee, third load, there's a fee, and then an invitation to leave the program until something changes drastically to get it better. If there's hazardous waste, we've seen some paint in this program, just somebody put it in the wrong place, there is a fee charged. So there's a process in place just in case we have contaminants. Current cost to recycle glass through the NRRA program, the Clean Glass program is in Keene is $45 a ton. The one in Hardwick is $51 a ton. The Dennis, Mass program is $75 a ton, and that's because of the screening that needs to be done, again, to get it to the smaller size. Littleton and New London are $40 a ton charge, as well as Waste Management Tree. So $40 a ton is a far cry from the cost that you're paying in your MSW program for sure. So we're trying very hard to keep those costs down, to keep the glass out of the landfills. Case study number 1, Washington, New Hampshire, population about 1,100. What we have established with our stats is that the average recycling rate for glass is 44 pounds per person. So in 2021, Washington did 37 tons or 65 pounds each. So we see this program in Washington, New Hampshire as a success. They've met the average recycling rate of 44 pounds plus. One more study is Hancock, New Hampshire, almost 1,700 people. They did 36 tons in 2021, and they have just about hit the mark of 43 pounds recycled by population. So it's fun to look at these from year to year, see how, if they've changed any part of their program and see if that's improved upon. That's quick view of what NRRA offers for recycling programs with glass. I'd certainly be happy to answer any questions. We do have a lot of information on our website, including glass story maps and a PGA video to watch a crush. And any questions? Sounds like we're going to have lots of them.
Marianne, you're muted.
Thank you. I'm sorry about that. Suzanne, one question that came in is about the bottle bill glass and how do you separate that out? And do you have a reverse vending machine on site?
No, we don't have a redemption machine on site. Everything is handled by the paid staff. What happens is some people don't want to separate the redemption, and so we end up having a percentage that end up in the glass bin. However, we have available bins at our shed. They're the recycling, rectangular, smaller bins, and we have them come up and put all their glass in there. We also have a separate container for liquor. Liquor in the state of Vermont is 15 cents. So we separate in a Gaylord. We take these small rectangular bins on a cart to our redemption shed, which is off to the side. And we have Gaylords for glass, that's 5 cents, and then a Gaylord specially for glass for liquor.
So one thing I just want to help people to understand is that the redemption bottles are collected separately at each site. Well, and Ben, probably not for yours, but I'll check in with you on that in a sec. But that the glass bottles we were referring to in the presentations had to do with glass bottles and jars other than the bottle bill glass. So Ben, do you want, being that New Hampshire does not have a bottle bill, do you want to talk about how and if you deal with redeemables there?
Yeah, so we, try to, along with everyone else, just try to keep up with change. We keep a pulse on what's happening statewide and what's happening, throughout I guess the country. But yeah, our main focus is basically to condense each load, following the rules that we can kind of, assess it as we go along. And when things change, we're happy to go about, getting what we can for the town. If it makes more sense to us to redeem those bottles, then that's what we would do. But for what we do, our main priority is to just break down the loads and recycle those that glass and try to give it new life.
Sure.
So our happy spot is up in Canada and then back to us, and there is some cost involved. And I saw a comment somewhere that I guess around the country they're paying tipping fees or trash fees of $40 or roughly $40 a ton, which is a lot less than what we do in New England. I'm not sure where they're paying that low of a cost for disposal. So
what is your tipping fee for trash?
Well, so we're at for MSW we're at 85 a ton. $85 a ton. So I mean, it's a lot more than what it would be if it was recycled at $45 a ton.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously there's every town's different. Walpole's primary goal is to recycle as much as we possibly can. So I mean, that's the way we look at things. And of course, there's costs associated with keeping the equipment running well and keeping the process up and running. But knowing that some of these products that come in that would be landfilled and would be trash are being reused, we're not out there searching for virgin materials to build with, and we're able to give back and kind of get some materials back into the recycling market that wouldn't be there if we didn't have this program.
Thank you, Ben. And Paul, can you talk about how you, bless you, whoever that was. Can you talk about how you separate out the redeemables there in Norwich?
Well, we have Gaylords that are provided by the people that do the redemption. And we just have signs on them, indicating they're for Vermont deposit glass only. And they sit near the stairs where the people get rid of all the other glass. And so it's a kind of we ask for cooperation. Of course, we get a lot of pickle jars and olive oil jars in with the redeemables. So it kind of falls to me, because we have 3 people working all the time, but the other 2 guys are pretty much tied down to where they are. So I circulate around and pick out the non-redeemable glass out of the redemption bins. And we probably only get, I would guess, a quarter of the redeemable glass is actually put in the redemption bins. The rest of it goes in the other glass hoppers. So we're paying for a lot of stuff that would bring in money to the town if they would just separate it. But I think the one slide there did show we have signs on the bins where we collect the redemption glass. We don't separate the 15 centers from the nickels, which would be a good idea because it does make quite a difference.
Mhm. Thank you,
So-
Paul. The other question is, Ben, you talked a lot about volunteers. Can you tell us how you've incorporated volunteers into your program and how that all works? I actually was amazed when I was there at how many volunteers you have at your access. That's just so unusual. And I wondered how that all happened and how you make it work.
Sure. So it wasn't always that way. I've been at the helm coming up on 4 years now. When I first took over, what happened was our old reuse center was an old trailer, and a tree fell on it, and we ended up getting an insurance settlement, and we were able to build a new reuse center. We actually used the tree within the reuse center and reuse that tree. So it's a lot of fun. We lucked out with being able to build a nice new facility that can accommodate all of our extra reusable products. So what we do is we made a few adaptations, a couple changes, which of course everyone was tough on us early on. We got through those hard times, and we initiated a new program where we weigh everything coming in to our reuse center. And if it's not sold, we weigh it on the way out to the compactor or as waste. We keep numbers on everything, and it used to be a case where people would drop and run in front of the old trailer. It wasn't well managed. It wasn't a comfortable place for volunteers. The new building, I give so the reuse center, we have 100% shift coverage for the next 3 months. And people love it. What I've done that's really been effective for us is I basically, because I have to, it's an extra thing that I can't really keep track of. So what I do is I give complete control to the volunteers and let them run the reuse center as if it was their own shop. So you have the opportunity to be your own shopkeeper, learn some things about how to run a shop, learn some things about how to deal with the public, and it's their source of pride when someone walks in the door and says, "This place is great, I love this," and I leave that with them, and so that's how I get them coming back. And we have a system where it's second to none as far as what we have for reuse volunteers. So comfort in just the ease and of the operation, we're trying not to waste anything. So on a lot of levels, it's a really cool place. Now, the volunteers on the recycling line, it's a tougher job. It's geared toward a different type of person. It is constant work where you're on the line, sorting plastic, pulling contaminants from the waste or from the recycling stream. So there's more footwork and more labor. So there's less volunteers in that way. But we've had volunteers for 30 years. It's a volunteer-driven program. We've been open since 1992. So we're coming up on 30. There's about 30 years this year. We've had different levels of volunteers. It's kind of ebbed and flowed with the popularity of just different times have been like different numbers for volunteers. But yeah, the volunteer, if you ever get a chance to stop in Walpole and see the volunteers, that is probably the best thing going for us, is having that volunteer presence.
Actually manages or oversees the volunteer piece? Is it you or is it another volunteer?
It's so I delegate some of the responsibilities to another volunteer, the scheduling portion of it, which this person, his name is Michael Neary. He's done it for years and years. He actually brought the reuse center trailer to our facility, so he's kept that portion of it. I have some small rules or some basic rules that I try to, like I said, try to let the volunteers decide for themselves how to run the shop. But there's some liability issues as far as what we can sell, and we try to make sure everyone's safe and things like that. We also try to keep volunteers out of our working space area, because it is part of our building, and we just can't have them around heavy machinery and moving pallet jacks and things like that. So, but I actually manage both the reuse center and the recycling center. The recycling center is my main priority, and I do really rely on the volunteers to handle a lot of the problems that come up themselves. So I just tell them, if it goes good, it's because you did it. If it goes bad, it's because you did it. That's the way it is. So, for some reason, that's worked out for us. And I don't know if I'd recommend saying that to everyone, but it's worked out well, and it's just been a pleasure to be a part of it.
And Bonnie, someone had commented about the use. It's a shame to use clean glass as PGA. And I wondered if you could talk to what are some of the factors that lead a community to collecting their glass for PGA as compared with collecting glass so that it's reused and recycled into a product that manufacturers could use for making new bottles or fiberglass, for instance.
So one of the main things is geography, because you have to get your glass from point A to point B. So if you're up in the north part of the state of New Hampshire and you're right next to the town of Littleton that has a host site, that would determine that you would do a PGA program. If you were down in the lower level close to Keene, then you'd probably be doing the same thing. So transportation is one factor. Pricing is another factor. We have different costs at different locations. And the ability to separate to that high spec of just glass jars and bottles. As Suzanne was saying about Thetford, they're so happy to put that other material in because it was being landfilled before. So it has a lot to do with what have you done, what's your program been? Can your residents change, and what are the good reasons to do? So it's really looking at each individual program and deciding what's best for each town.
Did any of the Suzanne or Paul or Ben, do any of you want to add to that?
I just want to say that in terms of costs and in terms of forcing our residents, there was a question about like C&D. anything that we can't recycle, they would have to go somewhere else. And that's inconvenient and also costly for them. So I try to take everything that they want to get rid of as long as it's reasonable and safe.
So for Paul and Ben, you're separating your glass for clean glass. Are you also taking the pane glass and the other glass that can, and mirrors and the like that can't go into the clean glass bin? Are you also collecting that separately?
At Norwich, all that type stuff would typically go into our C&D hopper. You know, like the porcelain, the sinks, the toilets and all that. And so yes, we do take it.
Paul, does that mean it's going to the landfill as C&D?
It probably does, yes. I'm not sure if where Casella takes her C&D hopper exactly. I've been told at one point they were crushing it, using it for cover at the landfill. So I'm not sure though for sure. I'm not sure what they do with it.
Yeah, and my situation is similar to Paul's. It's C&D. Anything that we get for glass or mirrors is C&D. And again, I believe it's landfilled.
And Bonnie, can you talk about, do you have towns that do both the clean glass and the PGA program so that they can collect all the glass and nothing's going to the landfill?
No, the only other option would be if, no, I guess not. They're picking one or the other, and it's typically, like Paul and Ben said, the window glass would go into the C&D. So I don't know of anybody that's actually separating that out for another product as an aggregate.
I apologize for bringing up the C&D. C&D is construction debris. Anything that relates to construction and household types of debris.
Yes, C&D is kind of a misnomer because we basically take anything that doesn't belong in the garbage. We take it in the C&D as long as it's non-hazardous. So we take mattresses, furniture, sheetrock, lumber, you name it. And of course, we do encourage people, if it looks like it's reusable, to lean it against the outside the hopper, and hopefully somebody will take it and reuse it instead.
Mm-hmm.
And while I'm talking about that, we do have a what they call plowshare. We have a area where people can leave items that they hope somebody else can use. It's kind of an honor system. People leave it there, other people take it. Sometimes it becomes a free dump, but you know.
We have a swap shop. It's called a swap shop. And I hate it because it's exactly what Paul is saying. Ours is not elegant. Now, Mary Ann, you said yours is elegant.
I love our swap shop. It is so, it's not as big as Ben's swap shop, however. Ben's is much larger, but it is a social area of our town. People come there to talk to each other. A lot of times you come out of your car with the items you want to put in the swap shop, and you don't even get to the swap shop because someone has met you in the parking lot. They've become so used to looking for items there that it's really a place to go. I love it. I absolutely love it. But they do depend on volunteers to keep it tidy, and they go through the items so that things that are truly garbage don't sit there. So it does take effort, but I'll tell you, so many families depend on that swap shop in our town. And Ben, I'm sure in yours too, because yours is so well organized that it's easy to come in and walk around and get what you need.
Well, it's certainly a social interaction spot in town for sure. And just like anyone's small town recycling center, there's plenty of social interaction all around, especially at the swap shop where you get a little bit lower key. I mean, when you're recycling, you do have a job to do. You have to get through and do your business and leave, but you can kind of spend some time and have a conversation when you're at the reuse center. So,
Yep.
yeah, no, it's a great addition to our facility.
I'd like to ask each of you to talk about what you think is the most important thing that you do to educate your residents about the glass recycling part of your recycling programs. What do you think is the most effective? Suzanne, you want to go first?
No, can I ask for the moment?
Ben or Paul, who wants to be brave and go first?
There you go.
I don't know. I try to explain to the people over the clean glass, there was a big difference in cost, whether it was contaminated or not. So I try to explain. People are always complaining about how much it costs to come and get rid of their stuff at the transfer station. And I say, well, you know, the town has to pay for this stuff that you're dropping for free. So if you would just, you know, you can help keep the cost down by putting the proper thing in the glass. I try that, and we actually sometimes have customers who shame the other customers. We don't get into that, but we do have some customers who stand there and say, "What is wrong with you? You ought to know that doesn't go there." But we do not do that as paid staff. I haven't found any real effective way to get cooperation there.
Mm-hmm.
It's depend on who's coming what day. Some days I picked clothes, frying pans, and everything else out of the bin that's labeled glass only. We have the sandwich boards. People walk by them. They toss their glass lids for their frying pans with the metal bands on them in, and I do probably 6 to 12 times a day minimum. I'm up there with my little grabber, pulling stuff out and putting it where it goes. And I just try to explain to people, hey, you know, read the sign here. This is very important. But you know,
I had been, on that note, I had been talking with someone who manages a recycling facility up in Maine, and they were becoming really frustrated by residents throwing in the wrong thing. And one day, one of the locals came in, and this person is an educator, and he said, you know, I don't understand what I'm doing wrong. People just don't get it. They're not reading the signs. They put all their garbage in with the glass. What am I doing wrong? And he said she turned and looked at him and said, you have to remember that you are at your site every day working. You know where everything goes. People who come in with their recycling maybe do it once a month, or some people are less. Some people do it more, but they're not remembering every time they come in what we feel is so passionate, right? We feel so passionate about, and they just don't feel that. So it requires us to continue to have the patience to keep reminding them what to do. I also just wanted to share with you that with that same work with those towns in Maine, I was lucky enough to find a radio person for one of the local stations. And she interviewed me first about glass recycling, but then she called the recycling facility managers for each site to talk to them about their glass recycling. And she put it on the air, and they said that they saw definite upticks in the amount of glass coming in after that. And that was all completely free. It was like a freak thing we found out about, and we just pursued it. And this radio announcer is so excited now. Anytime we have new announcements about glass, she puts it in her show. It's just part of what she's doing because she's so excited to see glass recycling happening. That was her motive. And she thinks it's a great thing. So finding those free outlets is important, whether it's we also have a free television station that's, well, I shouldn't say free, nothing about TV is free, but it's a local station where they post information as well as radio stations, if you have one local to you. Any other ideas about how to get residents motivated?
I'm constantly talking, as you can imagine, right, Bonnie? I'm coaxing, I'm cajoling, I'm talking to people. I thank people when they collapse their boxes. I tell them what they did is perfect. I say, you get a gold star. Some have gone home and told their spouses. In fact, I tell them to. I always thank people for asking questions, whether by email or in person. And I'm getting more and more questions because I constantly am asking. And then I remind people, and sometimes people are annoyed, and I say, oh, I'm sorry. I should have realized you know what you're doing. And occasionally I may make mistakes, and I point that out. You know, somebody dropped their garbage into the plastic. They come and say, hey, I dropped my plastic bag with some of my garbage, and I might tease them, but I say, oh, that's okay. I do that all the time, kind of thing. And then we'll go and get it. So it's a matter of mindset, but I agree with everything that everyone has said. It gets frustrating after a while, but you just keep going and you keep saying, hey, you're doing a good job, patting people on the back. And I occasionally tell people who show up and they don't have a permit, I say, if you show up again, I'm going to have to slap your hand. And just hitting things and to the people, but telling them, yeah, this is important, but it's not the end of your life if you don't do it right.
Mm-hmm. And Ben, I want to get back to something you had mentioned before. You said your tipping fee is $85 a ton. Does that include transportation?
No, it doesn't. And transportation is $275 for each truck. Once a week we ship that. So it definitely adds up, and it's going up. We have it goes up every couple of years. So that is a significant source of revenue going toward our waste disposal. So anytime you can pull waste or recyclables from that waste stream, it does add up. Between trucking and tipping, it really does add up.
Mm-hmm.
Bonnie, can you mention what percentage? Because I think it's extremely high. The transportation is a lot higher than sometimes the tipping fees.
Now, what percentage of what?
The transportation, the hauling costs.
For the MSW?
For recycling in general.
Well, we know that because we ship out full tractor trailer loads of cardboard, say, and we know we're paying anywhere from $2,000 to $2,500 to get that material from point A to point B. So we understand the transportation costs, never mind, with all the fuel costs at this point in time. So that's a big part of it. When Ben was mentioning the $40 a ton, that was most likely landfills in Ohio, Pennsylvania, and we're starting to see material from New England, MSW and construction debris going out that far because of those very low tipping fees in the middle of our country. And yeah, so it's, again, keep as much as you can out of the waste stream and staying as local as possible. Huge.
Suzanne, what is your tipping fee for MSW?
I don't know, and for the following reason. Unlike Ben, I guess, we do it per bag, and it's done by a private vendor, and we don't pay them. to be on site, but they bring a 40-yard bin and they fill it up every week almost,
And then
Yeah.
how do they get paid by your town
per bag.
per bag? Oh, I see.
Right,
Okay.
a 10 gallon, the white kitchen bags, that's about $3. Going up to $10 for the larger 30 gallon, 50 gallon, just the larger contractor bags.
Mhm.
And also if they're extremely heavy, because we do have people like Ben described, you can tell when they bring their stuff over, it's filled with recyclables.
Yep. And Paul, what about in Norwich?
I don't know what the town pays to have the stuff on the way. We do charge people per bag when they drop their waste off. And right now it's like if they buy it, we sell cards that are good for 10, 30 gallon bags. And right now that's so $4.50 a bag, but I imagine that's gonna be going up. But I don't know what Casella charges to pick up and haul. I know there's a base charge for trucking plus a charge per ton.
Mhm.
And they're dumped once a week. They're about a 40-yard compactor.
And I know in well, last time I asked, Springfield's is about $96 a ton. So we're paying really high tipping fees. And I see somebody posted Tennessee has $37 a ton, which is quite low. So in those instances, I think when you are trying to convey the reason why recycling is so important, particularly around glass, there's such greenhouse gas savings from the use of glass, whether it's being used to make new bottles and or fiberglass, but also some of the emerging markets that are coming out in glass for use in Pozzolan material, which is a cement replacement in concrete, and also as a foamed glass aggregate. There are such greenhouse gas savings from the use of glass as a replacement material, use of recycled glass, that that is a good selling point for residents to know about. And through the course of this conversation, I will post a website where we've created at NERC a glass hierarchy, and it talks about the different greenhouse gas savings from different recycled glass applications. And I will post that link briefly. So I would like to ask, I think we've gone through most, if not all of the questions. Wanted to ask you all, to each one of you, take a turn to talk about what you would suggest to someone who maybe is collecting glass but hasn't been quite successful, or somebody who's thinking about starting a glass program. What are your words of advice to them? And Ben, I'd like to start with you, please.
Sure. I mean, my advice to them would be: you're going to save money. You're recycling for a good cause. I mean, you're saving other companies from having to tap into virgin materials. So it really makes sense on both a financial level and an environmental level. You know, it's something that you should be doing if you can. And there's minimal. I mean, the bottle crusher is an expense, I guess, going into it. But when you're looking at the savings and the cost of MSW going up, solid waste prices going up, it's a no-brainer to recycle glass.
Ben, before we move on, I skipped one question that was for you. Where did you get the machine that breaks your
Ooh.
glass?
That is a great question. I honestly, I have no idea how old that is. It just keeps working, so I'm sure it's old. It's an old. It's called a Bottle Buster, and I neglected to look up any more information. I don't even have any information on it. Most of the products that we purchased within the last 20 years, I have information on. It could be up to 30 years old. We've been crushing glass, I believe, that long. But it's a fantastic and fun machine, and the conveyor belt. It's fun to kind of, the volunteers enjoy. I think that's their favorite part of volunteering on the line is using our conveyor belt and then smashing bottles.
Just out of curiosity, do you have any like dust collector on it so people aren't exposed to the? all
Well,
the
I
dust?
absolutely right. I absolutely know how the glass dust is just terrible. You breathe any of that in, and you're coughing, and it's just nasty stuff. But it's what it is the conveyor belt goes into another room on the other side of the wall, so it's completely walled off, and there's no residue or smoke or broken glass returning to the area where you start. The conveyor belt's roughly 10 feet long, and it's fed through a wall. It drops into the Bottle Buster, and then if you were in that back room at the time of it being crushed up, then yes, it would be very dusty in there. But it's like a garage situation. You open the garage door when you're done, and you drive in with a Bobcat, so you're never really subjected to much dust at all. I usually close the windows of the Bobcat. But yes, it is. I mean, you don't want to be around that glass when it's dusty, because it's tough to, you don't want to breathe that in at all. But yeah, we don't have that issue, and it works out really well.
Suzanne, any last words of wisdom for everyone?
I would say that the glass program at Thetford has been here for 33 years and is considered an important program, and the large volume that glass takes, as well as the weight, makes it really important to remove it from your solid waste. Despite not paying for municipal solid waste removal, it's on the responsibility of the resident, and they pay in cash or check to that private vendor, and they've been doing that for the last, I don't know, several decades. I think some of the realization has set in to residents, because they've reduced, a couple of them have told me they've reduced the amount of trash that they bring and pay for 50, 60%. So it's a winner. It goes without saying. If you want to go home and keep your greenbacks in your wallet, you're going to try to do it as best as you can.
Paul, how about you?
No, what you said about in general recycling, I know personally, when we started recycling many years ago, I cut what I was paying for, then the volume I was paying for about in half. So I do kind of, sometimes people say, well, why should we bother to do this? I say, you can save money because you're paying for less bags. And so, the kind of appeal to people's selfish interest kind of helps, I think.
And Paul, where do people get the bags in your for Norwich?
We don't sell the bags. We just sell the tickets that they use for getting rid of their household waste, and they bring it in their cans, their boxes, whatever, and the attendant charges them accordingly to what they're dumping.
So they use tickets to pay for whatever they bring in whatever container they bring it in.
So the attendant there has to kind of estimate at times, because people bring in loose stuff,
Mhm.
shoot away, like bundles of clothes. We are, the solid waste committee is trying to get drop boxes so clothes can be recycled, but that's still in the works right now,
Mhm.
which would be a good thing, I think, but
Absolutely. Yep. Okay, and Bonnie, do you have any last words of wisdom for everyone?
Certainly continue keeping that glass out of the waste stream. We do have a glass crusher info sheet on our website. So if you go to the NRRA website, look under resources, and there's 3 companies there that sell glass crushers, and they're the municipal size. A lot of the contracts that you have, whether you have single stream or dual stream recycling, oftentimes the company that you're working with will give you a break if you pull your glass out, because it's very difficult for MRFs or material recycling facilities to deal with glass. It comes out at the end, a product that has glass in it, yes, but has a lot of contaminants such as paper and plastics and so on. So that end product is very difficult for these larger companies to deal with in the single stream process. So again, look for incentives from the companies you're working with. If I pull out my glass, is there going to be savings? I liked what Suzanne said about encouraging people. Thank you. The thank yous that go along with good job. I think that makes such a huge difference. And being able to take the time, all of you as operators, to say, yes, that goes here, that does not go here. And even though you have to repeat it 100 times, I think that's still what gets into people's minds as to, okay, potentially purchasing something that can be recycled as opposed to something that can't. I think that's the ultimate.
Well, I want to thank all of our presenters today. This has been great. I'm so happy you were all able to join us and to share your experiences and your expertise around glass recycling. I want to let everyone who has joined us know that the presentations from today's webinar will be put on NERC's website shortly afterwards. And the recording will be available as well. And I'll email everyone when these are both posted so that you can refer to it later. But thank you everyone for attending, and we hope you have a great afternoon.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank
All
you.
righty.